Do we want to go around really quick, round robin, and just refresh everybody's memory of who we are? Because I think I've met Bree before, but I'm not sure.
Yep, I'll do that real quick here. Well, do you want to start, Karen?
Sure. So, hello, everyone. I'm Karen Dines. I'm from the Las Vegas chapter. Um, and joining me tonight on the call is Mary from the Las Vegas chapter. She's part of the scholarship committee selection from the Las Vegas chapter. And then I'm also helping to serve on the um, alumni scholarship committee. I'm based out of Las Vegas.
Thank you. Why don't you call on someone next so we can keep it moving?
Andy.
I'm Andy Edlin from King County. That's it. I'm one of the vice presidents. I think David's on the call also. I think his screen says King County Cougs. He's our chapter president. I call on David.
Mute. Hey, this is David. So I'm walking down the street. I just got done with the run. So yeah, I'm David Nelson, president of King County. Great to meet everybody. And then I will call on Jeff.
Hello, my name is Jeff Lewis, and I am the Oregon president, representing co-president of the Oregon chapter. And I'm not sure how to call upon anyone else. I don't know how to do that. This is like my second or third Zoom call ever.
Let's go with Justin. Are you there?
Thanks, Jamaica.
Yes, I am. Hi, I'm Justin LeGrand, president, co-president, I guess, of the DFW chapter. While I'm not actively on the scholarship committee, Bree Wadley is, who is also in this meeting. She volunteered earlier this year to help us out. So I'm kind of here as a proxy just to kind of learn about how this works. And, I met all of you at the conference earlier this year, and it's good to see some of you again. Jeff.
Hey, Justin.
How's it going, man?
Good, man.
Thank you. Bree, you want to go next? Stick with Texas.
Hello, my name is Brianna Watley. I was on the scholarship committee for last year, and I'm in DFW. And I'll call on, I don't know who hasn't went. Has Karen went?
Yeah, let's try iPhone. Who's our mystery guest?
Okay.
iPhone, you're up.
No, maybe not. Go to Shoma. Just a quick introduction.
Hi, my name is Shoma. I am one of the vice presidents for the Black Alumni chapter, also a member at large for the board, and also served on the P&W scholarship committee for the first time this last go around.
Roxanne.
Aloha kako, this is Roxanne. I'm here in Hawaii. I'm part of the Hawaii chapter. I originally started as the scholarship chair for the Hawaii chapter, and now I sit on the board of directors as the chair for the association level scholarship committee.
Thank you.
And I'll hand it off to you, Sharon. Welcome.
Just a quick introduction.
All right, to me, right? Was that me?
Please.
Okay. All right. Hey everyone. Ahu Sa. I apologize for being late. I had it on my calendar, but I realized I didn't actually have the link on my calendar. And so that was a little flustering for a hot minute, but thank you so much, Jamaica. My name is Sharon Mail Conachi, and I am the vice president now for the Kuyama Alumni Society, which is our Native American chapter. And I also sit on the board of directors for the WSU Alumni Association. And I am here right now. I am here in very hot Pullman, Washington.
Yeah, Pullman.
Thank you, everyone. I think we got everyone. And I'm Jamaica. I get to wear two hats. I am WCA staff, but I also am also the chapter president for Utah. So I get to experience both sides of it, which is kind of fun. Today, kind of an informal.
We have Mary still. We have
Oh,
Mary.
she, is her audio working, Mary?
Oh, maybe not.
You can jump in and interrupt me when she gets it going. Yeah, so today, more informal, just feedback session. We did have a survey after the cycle went through, and we got some really good input. And there's a few areas that were not rated as high that we didn't get specific input on, so we thought we'd have a discussion today. Roxanne's going to lead the discussion. I'm going to try to answer questions that come up or provide insight that we did get on the feedback survey from you. We are really trying to improve the process for everyone involved, for the students and for our volunteers, because we know it is a huge time commitment, a huge lift, but it's so rewarding to see these students and what they get out of the awards. So again, informal, please, if you have questions, throw them out there. And we will get the discussion started here. Roxanne, I'm going to hand it over to you. And again, if there's things that we don't talk on we gave you kind of the topics we're going to cover today, but if there's more, please feel free to share, throw comments in the chat. We'll watch it as we go. So Roxanne, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jamaica. So as we went through introductions, I heard folks that may be newer to the scholarship process, as well as folks who have been doing this for years and years. So I'll just give a little bit of background so we all have a shared starting point for the rest of the discussion to get your feedback. We have constantly been in an iterative process between getting volunteers' feedback and trying to make updates, getting feedback on those updates and revamping it again. Again, just like Jamaica said, we're always trying to streamline the process for volunteers and make sure we have a fair and transparent process for students. So this is just another iteration in that process. So background on some of the updates that you saw last year, volunteers had been asking questions, particularly, and also providing feedback, but particularly around giving students more clarity around what is leadership so that they could submit higher quality submissions, both in their written components and in their interview. Volunteers wanted to see increased quality from students. When we went back to examine the guidance information, both that we give to volunteers and we give to students, we wanted to see where we could clarify that. We identified that there was no documented historical archive where the Alumni Association Scholarship Committee had really clearly stated or examined what was meant by leader or leadership, and that there wasn't perhaps an established shared understanding of the concept of leadership. It was more as a taken for granted. We all know what leadership is. And that kind of implied that perhaps it's a singular thing with a right or a wrong. So once we noticed this and given the feedback from volunteers, we went to go do some digging and to do some research. So a comprehensive and diverse review was conducted where we examined what is leadership, how does research, different fields, different industries define and operationalize leadership, and what are they looking for in their future leaders, because that's what we are a part of a process with our student applicants. And so we know what kind of evidence we should be trying to collect with our tools and what we should be looking for in the student essays and the student interviews. So that review, from that review emerged 5 concepts that were universal across all the fields. And Jamaica, thank you for dumping those in there. I'm not going to go through them detail by detail. It's in the handbook. You guys have all at least hopefully engaged in one round of scholarship review, so you should be familiar with them from last year. But the 5 concepts that were universal across all industries and fields was purposeful planning, that leadership is not a title or an innate ability, but it's actions. Strategic problem solving, where you see leaders aligning their actions to their plan, and their ability to think, communicate, and act across differences, understanding multiple perspectives. And there were some people element to it in terms of the outcome, that there was a benefit to people, or some verbiage used it as public good. So despite the different vocabularies that different industries and different fields use, these 5 concepts were continuous throughout. So we took that information, and our goal was to create a very minimal shared understanding of leadership for the volunteers, for students, and for ourselves as the association level committee that's meant to support everyone, while also leaving the doors wide open to understand that those 5 dimensions of leadership can manifest very, very differently across a field, industry, geographical region, culture, and so on. So we were trying to strike a balance between creating that shared understanding, but being really open to understanding the manifestations may be very different, may look very different. So we undertook updates for the written essay questions, which those of you who were engaged last year, or at least for a couple of years, would have seen the new essay questions last year. We created a rubric for students to help them become more clear, again, trying to increase the quality of their submission. We updated the interview questions and the rubric, and then we also updated the reviewer platform, the handbook, as well as our trainings to reflect these research-based practices and to all be in alignment with each other, again, with the hopes of streamlining the process for volunteers. And then at the end of this last selection cycle, we sent out a survey to everyone, asking for their feedback, what worked, what didn't, across all of the new updates and all of the mechanisms, processes, and tools in the scholarship program. So this meeting here is picking up where all of that left off. The survey feedback was really, really good. There were some places where folks said that they'd like to see improvements, but didn't maybe articulate any further what those changes would be that would be most helpful. So we're hoping to get your feedback today that can help close some of those gaps, or just tell us perhaps new perspectives, new opinions, experiences that you had with scholarship. So any questions before I dive into the discussion questions? Hopefully that gave everyone some background, especially new folks. Okay, awesome. So in previous years, and Jamaica, correct me if I'm wrong, folks received it again this past cycle, the WSU General Scholarship Application. This is what students complete with the university. And it's a prerequisite for them to complete the university's general scholarship application in order for them to be eligible for our Alumni Association scholarships, our awards.
This is the one that you had to go, if you did the evaluations this year, you had to go into the attachments as a PDF. It was the only attachment that was in there this year, which is a little bit of a different format than last year, where you had to download the questions. We had the questions in the body, so you can see it side by side with the rubric, and then the attachment was that general application. And we're curious how many people actually looked at it and used it. Anyone thoughts?
If you used it, can you give a thumbs up emoji? And if you didn't use it, don't give us anything. Maybe that'll be quick and easy.
Okay. Was the information in that useful in completing your evaluation of the student? And if so, what was there and what wasn't? What were some of the feedback on that specifically?
Well, this is my first time doing it this year, so I was taking all the information I could. So I'll definitely have a better idea for you next year if it's the same same references and stuff.
So I'll jump in, though I've been here for multiple years. To me, it's just important additional information to allow us to get a clearer picture of the student. I think if we didn't have some of that, it provides a little bit of kind of snapshot and history and background that complements what they add to the actual application for the alumni scholarship.
For those that have been with us for a few years, could you see more difference in the answers provided in the general application and the questions that we asked this year? Or do they still seem very similar to each other? Not sure anybody has that experience. Okay. In the past, we had found that the questions that were on the application for the general scholarship were very similar to ours. And so students were using the same answer in both. And so we had adjusted ours to fit what Roxanna talked about earlier on the leadership piece, because that's not what the university uses, but we're basing ours on. Thank you.
For those folks who've used it in the past, is there anything about it that is not useful or that you would ever suggest, like, I don't use it at all, or I don't see the value in including it or using it in terms of identifying student leadership specifically, because that's what our awards are? You won't hurt our feeling.
It was helpful to me because different places just have different aspects of what a leader is, in different schools, different institutions. So it was all helpful for me because I don't want to be giving feedback for something specific as the WSU scholarship based on my experiences with other institutions. I don't think that would be fair.
Thank you.
Here in Jamaica, any last questions for this topic?
I'll throw one question out there to the group here. If we were to not include that, but to have students giving us a CV/resume/bullet point of other things they're involved with, do you think you would get the same type of information, that snapshot, or do we like having that application there? David?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely important to have there because for two reasons. First, I think it sets a baseline and kind of like what we're looking for, and then B, it's like a CYA for y'all. So I think it is important to have it there. Just, people don't use it, they don't use it, that's on them, but you should definitely provide all the resources and information you can, kind of what we're looking for. So I would say keep it.
Thank you.
I agree. I think it should be kept also.
Okay. Thank you for that feedback. That's exactly the information we need from you. Thank you.
All right, if there's no more on the WSU's general application, we'll shift to handbook. So this is what all volunteers receive before the selection process starts. It walks everyone through all the steps of the selection process. It's been updated each year for the past few years. We try to review all the materials every summer, make any relevant updates, so it's ready to go for the next selection cycle. So my question is, how can it be improved to be more effective and more efficient in helping you all identify and measure student leadership? What worked, what doesn't? And feel free to just jump in.
How often is it reviewed from y'all?
Reviewed? So yearly. There's quite a few changes this year as far as the format of it to try to better align with the process that we went through. But if there is stuff that seems outdated, let us know so we can reevaluate those sections too.
So I'm going to start a theme that maybe we can incorporate into all discussion topics going forward. And I'm going to obviously give credit where credit is due. Andy identified some potential ChatGPT AI things going on. This is something we need to address. We probably need to align it with Wazoo stance. If there isn't one, we need to make up our own. And maybe I'm skipping ahead. Maybe one of the future questions for next year is like, hey, what are your thoughts on people who use ChatGPT for papers or whatever, right? So I'm just going to start that here. So maybe that's something we can start looking into, some of these.
Yes, that was actually one of the top things that we talked about this year. So I researched what the university is using, and they're their statements that they include in the syllabus and stuff, or syllabi. And so I took that, worked it a little bit different. And the hope is that if we give the statement that ChatGPT, we want to know the authentic student. We're not looking for what ChatGPT or AI is going to put out there for us. If you are going to use it, you need to give credit where credit is due that you did use that. I spoke to another of our volunteers, Carla Blanco, is a university professor down in California, and she was talking about that's what she does with a lot of her classes. Hey, you can use it, but you better let us know that you did use it. So we'll do the disclaimer that'll hopefully discourage that next step of actually proving, and what we do at that's where we're kind of working on right now, but we definitely have the disclaimer to add in there, support from the university on what they're using. And then hopefully that'll help us, but working on that next step still. So heard, and you guys, you brought it up first, but it was echoed in a lot of them. And I was curious on those that looked assisted. When you did interviews with those students, was it super obvious that they had?
Realistically, it's obvious, like from the get-go, like when they have their essay and it's like everything's like perfect, even better, than like some of my English professors back in the day. And then like, but the part where you can't chat GPT, like addresses are spelled wrong or those sorts of things, like, oh, okay, right. That's when you're kind of like wondering about it. But overall, like, I will admit that the King County Cougs, when we came for our selections we were to talk to, we looked at people who didn't have that obvious, usage of it. But if that was essentially our opinion, because again, we're going back to what you were just saying earlier, like we want the authentic person.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, like I also reached out to every single person who applied and said, hey, going forward, I own a business where I like give complimentary like reviews for like scholarships, stuff like that, just to help students. And I'm like, hey, reach out to me. Like I'll go through and we can work through it together. And so that's what I did. That's essentially to CYA for us, because I didn't want to get caught in a scenario where we're only looking at people who didn't use ChatGPT because it was not addressed as part of the criteria.
Correct. Yep, it is in there. More to come on that. Thank you guys for bringing that up.
Right. I'll kind of jump in here a little bit. So from years past, it does seem like the use of it, or the possible use of it, really exploded this past year versus years prior. So I think maybe we were caught just a teeny bit off guard. Definitely have to address that deeper and further as far as how we clarify the use of that with the student applicants and how it affects our evaluation and review as the volunteers, because we don't want to make assumptions either about an outstanding response that obviously that is chat GPT and AI. But so yeah, thank you, David. It's a big can of worms that we definitely need to dive deeper in and add clarity to. I'll ask in case, so we tried to add this year to the handbook, make it progressive as far as the process of how it was, and have hyperlinks in the handbooks. Was that deemed helpful, not helpful? How do you feel about how the handbook guided you in the process as you were going through that various steps?
Go ahead, David.
Well, yeah, so definitely the hyperlinks definitely helped. If I remember right, there's one link that was not up to date. So maybe just like one last review on that. I can't remember which one it was, because again, this was a while ago, but definitely keep the hyperlinks in there.
Anything within the handbook, either the way that it was structured and flowed or the actual content of the information, that you either didn't find it helpful, like maybe take that out, or that it was maybe difficult to use or unclear, where we could make sure we clarify.
How did you all feel as far as how it tried to explain reviewer and your steps and your process there? So we had the live training, and I think we'll probably discuss that a little bit as far as any edits or changes of that. But did you feel that you were able to, if you say missed the live training and with the recordings and the handbook, you were able to figure out how to navigate successfully in Reviewer? Bree, I know we're fairly new. What did you think as far as you know, I believe it was your first year as far as trying to figure out how to navigate in Reviewer?
It wasn't difficult. It did have good instruction in there. So I didn't have difficulty navigating. I just had to sit there and read everything and make sure I understood what it was telling me before I made any decisions. And before reading the entries, I read the instructions and everything.
Great, thank you. Andy, were you going to say something a moment ago?
Yeah, I thought the live training was great, and then you know, the handbook was just kind of general, kind of like, you know, you do this before doing this, you have to go through all these. But I think like as far as like value, like the live training, and because I did the live training, I didn't watch the video, so I thought it was all explained pretty well during the live session. So I think during the actual process of doing the review and reading the evaluations, the handbook was just kind of like pretty general.
Andy, thank you for bringing up the live training. I know we don't have that as one of our topics, but since you brought it up, does anyone else have any feedback on the live training? Any aspect of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, keep, get rid of?
Well, it's also my first time going through this process as a you know, on the committee. I would definitely keep it, especially if there's newer folks, you know, and there'll probably be some new teammates every year. So I don't think it, you know, I don't think it would be detrimental for people who've received the training before to, you know, if they've got the 45 minutes to sit on top on the call to do it. But I would keep it, the live training.
When does the handbook come out? And when is like the trainings? And is this all at a specific time of year? And does each chapter get an actual physical handbook?
We have not done physical handbooks. We rolled out the handbook and we did the training in January. It was mid-January, and then February 1st is when the applications started that were open. We could actually probably get it out earlier. We didn't want to do the trainings too early so people would forget things by the time they got in there. So we could definitely get the handbook out earlier though, and maybe that would give time to kind of look at it, process through it, so they have the questions when we get into the training part of it. Would that be helpful?
And is that going to be the same time frames next year?
Yeah, so the time frame, let's talk about that for a second here. It is a fast turnaround, but that's not a time frame that we have set. It's based on when the applications are due to WSU, and that turnaround time to get them done is so that we can get those offers out to the students before they make their decision for the fall semester. So that February 1st, and then we have to be done by early May. There's a lot of steps that go on there, and it is quick turnaround, but we don't have room to expand that because we can't. If we're going to use the general application for WSU, we can't move our deadline up because we can't get them from WSU until February 1st. And then we don't want to wait too late to award because then students will make other decisions or plans. Does that help clarify?
Jamaica, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any world in which if we weren't using the WSU general scholarship application, that would expand the window, our process window?
In theory, I think we could. It's been November 1st to January 31st for a number of years for the application period to put in for scholarships. And so that would be our biggest, I guess, hurdle is getting students to turn them in earlier because we give them all the way till January 31st because of the WSU deadline. So that would be our biggest challenge, I think, is adjusting those dates.
Yeah, and I'm wondering with when the semester ends, the fall semester, I mean, it kind of right now occurs at a good time where they're done with fall semester and they have time to work on that before the spring semester starts. If we were to adjust that, would it be a competing conflict with wrapping up their fall semester?
I can look and see. I'm curious on when in theory, that makes sense, Karen, but I don't know if we all remember our college selves and if we did things earlier, if we waited till the last minute. I'm curious what our turn-in trend was, and if it was higher over that holiday break when students are maybe at home doing their scholarship application, not hanging out with their friends they haven't seen since the summer. But that's something I can pull up and look, though, because I am curious if we do see that uptick. We definitely, those last few days, we see that bump at the end, and especially for those that started applications, we send constant reminders to them every week. Hey, you didn't submit your application yet. Make sure you get it done before the 31st. So I'm curious. I'll pull that information and see what it shows.
Is there any student information that gets submitted with their general scholarship application that we as the Alumni Association need to use to cross-validate their eligibility where we would not be able to ask them to submit earlier?
The only thing I'm thinking off the top of my head really isn't a thing because we pulled the year that they're in school. And this is kind of a tricky thing I learned this year is that application may show that they're a fourth-year student or a third-year student, but they say they're only a sophomore, but their credit that application shows their credit years, not their attendance years. And that was kind of an interesting thing that I had to double check that I wasn't messing something up on that. But we decided that the years in school was what we kept them at for their experience and not the number of credits, because a lot of our students are overachievers, even though they're second or third years, they had enough credits to be a year higher. Now, Roxanne, I don't think besides that was my main thing I pulled off of those was their year in school. GPAs, the GPAs are actually screened before we get the list. And so the GPAs are looking at is their cumulative. I'd have to look and see when they update those because I pull them that February 1st date. So it has through that December term.
So that may be something that would preclude us from widening the window because we would have to wait until faculty input the grades, whatever is the final grade input date, so we know what their official GPA is. Okay. Thank you.
Some of the other feedback we got on the trainings, and I'll say it because I don't want anybody to think they're going to hurt my feelings if they tell me that it was too long. So this year we are looking at breaking it up more. So maybe the reviewer training session is separate or pre-recorded. And then we did get really good feedback from Dr. Amiro came and talked about antibiotics. We got really good feedback on him. And then the process itself, something that we can provide ahead of time. Tom actually, who joined us on the call here, he had a scholarship student that he didn't think was going to get one, but a scholarship opened up. So really being able to better explain the process that it goes through. And maybe that's a pre-recorded or better written out so everybody understands those things. So instead of doing a 2-hour chunk, and the other thing that came is we really wanted to make it mandatory for everybody. And that was our completed intent. And then life happens and it was hard. People have just didn't get in there. We did have quite a few that watched it afterwards. And I could see when they watched it so we could give them credit for doing the training, but figuring out better ways that are more, I guess, digestible, accessible to our volunteers too, to make sure that we're not taking up too much of the time, but getting them the information that's important.
So just an idea I had. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is an idea I had because again, this is the first time I've ever done it, and the reviewer, application. I'm not familiar with it. Something to consider maybe for like down the road is to actually like have someone like video record, like someone actually going through the process, showing where things are at in there that you can refer to for other people. So when they're going through, or even as a refresher. So like when I go through next year, I might have a hard time remembering what I did last year. So just something I can refer to like, oh, that's where that menu is at. That's where that, that option is at. That's how I put it. That's where I put in my input, that sort of thing. Just have someone record it and then just like put stuff in there. Just an idea I have.
I think Karen had that same idea.
Yeah, similar to that. And I was wondering also, I had a couple other ideas. I think Roxanne started I think it was last year, initiated the office hours. Of course, maybe that wasn't always convenient to people, but that was great. People had questions to come to their designated person for those office hours. I'm wondering too if there's any benefit as far as maybe our training's a little bit more short and concise, and we do by chapter, by the team of however it's divided up. There's some follow-up training. So say, for example, Mary, who had scholarship for the Las Vegas, on our scholarship members, do we have our own little mini review that follows up? So just curious what maybe other avenues or ideas might be beneficial to kind of help reinforce this.
You also might try to consider stages of training. So, just have because you can make those meetings a lot quicker, and they're easy to record too. So for those who can't make it, you can send a recording out, and they'd be more willing to maybe watch a smaller meeting than something that was a little bit longer. But and just say, it's like, okay, so here's your homework from this day, from this time to this time. This is what we want all of you to do, and just focus on that part. And then you can do another training, a training part 2 for maybe the next one. Another way you can do it, and you probably have already thought about this, is having like those who are already familiar with Reviewer, because we can navigate through it pretty easily. I've always found, not everyone agrees with me, but I've always found Reviewer to be pretty user friendly. But I've been in the education field for many, many years and have used very many user friendly things. And Reviewer is actually one of the more user friendly things that I've used. So I found it pretty easy to navigate through. Whereas folks who are maybe just coming on would get a different training because they would need more step by step.
Great ideas.
Sharon, just to follow up on the idea of stages, would something that would feel like a natural fit be like a before interviews, during interviews, after interviews type of structure, or do you have other stages that you think?
No, that's something like that. It's like, okay, so you need to have your interview committee, shored up. You should have this many people on your interview committee. And then of course, office hours through all of that, because there's going to be some folks who are going to have some questions, and, and so by, and by this time you need to have done an initial review of all of your scholarships, or, whatever wherever it makes sense to break those things up. The only issue with that is that the schedule would be dictated by the scholarship schedule. So there's not a lot of give for, like, if you have to reschedule, or if you have to you might have to have a meeting one week and then have to have one in the next week, just because that's how the schedule is. So I guess it would just be looking at it, but that's just a way to, like, maybe it's more digestible, I think. Because if I went into a meeting and it's like, okay, so here's your first step, and then you do this, and then you do this, and you do this, and as a first person or as a new person, I might find that to be overwhelming. But if you're telling me, this is just the educator coming out in me too, is like, this is all I need you to do by this date. This is your homework. Here's your list. Here's your marching orders. And, get it done by this time, and then we'll meet again on this time, and we'll talk about the next steps. And so then it tends to be a little more easier to do those steps, as opposed to trying to give them all their steps all at once. That's how I was able to get students to do essays.
Out of curiosity, besides Sharon, Roxanne, and I, has anybody else ever been a teacher of any sort? Just curious.
Me, I'm a substitute.
Bree, yeah. Being a substitute is even higher than full-time teacher sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you. I was just curious. Roxanne and I get into our education, our teacher brains, and we go way down the rabbit hole. So thank you.
Okay. So we'll move over to essays and interview questions. Those were also revamped or updated this past before this last cycle. So if you've been with us for more than 1 year, you'll be able to see the difference between the questions that students got for their essays and that you all utilize for your interviews this year compared to past years. So my question for you is, how can essay questions for students and interview questions that you guys ask students, how can they be improved to be more effective and efficient in identifying and measuring leadership? And feel free, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, so the idea I have is just like, I recognize, they're like 4 or 5 questions I can't remember, but it'd be nice if every chapter got to have like a wild card question that every single candidate gets asked and is also approved by y'all, just to make sure that, like, hey, this is a question we want to propose. Because there's just certain, like King County, for example, like obviously it's a large county and all that stuff. We might have different questions that maybe like the other counties would have, but it's also our chance to like personalize the process instead of going like with the main streamline. That's just an idea I had.
I've always done volunteer work, even since grade school. So I didn't see, there was only one candidate in DFW, and I didn't see that in her application. But if that is not on specific, like on there, I think that would help. Like if they know to enter volunteer work or any community service that they've done, if there's any leadership that they've done in those roles, like it doesn't have to be paid leadership or only school sports, because I think the candidate we had mentioned something about her role in school, but also community service.
So Bree, just one thing I'll give you a little bit of background on is there used to be a community service specific question, so that was required. One thing that was examined in a couple of committee compositions ago, they did a review and around the potential class-based discrimination around requiring a community service or free labor, particularly for students who just simply may not come from a financial circumstance where that is possible. So we've been trying to think on all the ways to clarify the infinite number of contexts in which a student can lead in, and it all counts. Because we've also gotten feedback where students also might have a lot of familial responsibility, and that they don't believe there to be any leadership value or anything that they could communicate there. And we know that's not true as well. So we're trying to figure out ways to clarify for students that all of those contexts count. Whatever they're going to say, yes, and now tell us your evidence of leadership in those 5 dimensions, right? We're not privileging any titles or organizations. I was the president versus, I didn't have a title. And that's something specifically that the literature talked about against, was that leadership is not titles, that it's actions. So we do want to stay grounded in that and trying to elicit concrete evidence from students regardless of context. So if you have any feedback on ways that we can continue to communicate, like that all contexts are available to be put in, that would be great, because I think it's still a stumbling block for students.
Yeah, I will definitely look into that. I don't have it. I would have if I would have known. But the community that I'm in is a community where it's a lot of teenagers struggling, but we have some intelligent students. And they get made to do community service, even though from what I've heard is now the schools, at least here, are requiring them to do so many hours of community service. And maybe it's because they don't take any leadership roles as far as sports or joining any clubs or anything like that. But that's from what I've heard here, because I do a lot of community service and they ask us to host community service events and that we can invite teenagers to because their kids are being required by the school to participate in community service activities and have proof for someone to sign off on it.
Interesting. Yeah, Sharon. Thank you, Bree, for sharing that.
Mhm.
I really like the idea about a wild card question. I think there are going to be some there's going to be some differences in each of our chapters, and it's not even, it could just be rewording the question for our students to be able to use the vocabulary that they are familiar with hearing. And I totally understand the community service portion of it. And you're absolutely right, Roxanne. Our students need to understand that we're not asking them for just that, the traditional leadership that they would normally put, but that's still what they're hearing, and it's still what they're getting. It's a slow shift, and the students are starting to get a different message, like from their counselors or from different things that they are the applications that they are filling out. But for the most part, it's still that traditional, I was ASB president, I was the captain of my football team, I joined this club, after school club, and those are all really great, but to try to really get at all of their leadership abilities, just uh, being able to get their siblings off to school in the morning, or something, that takes some leadership on their part to do that, and they don't think of that as something that they would be able to write about. And so I think it's just a matter of trying to get them to bring that out. One of the things, and I don't know if we can do this for our scholarships, and I'm only thinking out loud in real time here right now, but when I was job hunting quite a few years ago, I was looking at this job, and I was telling myself in my head that, oh, I'm not qualified for this. I can't. No, this is I fit some things, but I don't think I fit enough. And they had a little disclaimer in this. I might have told you this before, Roxanne, in Jamaica. But they had this little disclaimer at the top, and it was basically, it was like they were reading my mind. They were saying, we find that, like these communities always feel like that they are not able to, be eligible for these positions, or or this type of work, when we really want to encourage you to apply anyway. I'm paraphrasing, but that was enough for me to give it I still didn't apply, but it gave me confidence. I was like, oh, you're right. In that whole time, I was putting myself down as I was reading the whole scholarship, and so, maybe just like a little message to our students or something, saying, hey, you definitely deserve to be applying for this scholarship. Or, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just thinking out loud, but just trying to get them to start to feel a little more comfortable and hear their voice as opposed to an AI voice in their essays.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, just on what Sharon was just saying, I think we have to communicate that better to the applicants, that it's not maybe like traditional leadership, it's all of your experiences where you've had an opportunity to make a difference and be effective. And I think if we incorporate that language also into it, like effectiveness and opportunity and difference, I think that's also what we're looking for, not just, ASB president or team captain. You can be, how did you make a difference in your community? And those are a lot of the people that we're looking for, the ones that maybe that haven't had those leadership opportunities, or, don't have the resources to be able to participate in activities where they would be what's traditionally known as a leader. So if we can communicate that, and I would say earlier in the process of like looking at the application so that we know they'll read it, the farther back that it goes, I think, the less likely it is that we get noticed.
Well, excuse me. I think those are very valid points, and that's one of the things we've been trying to figure out how to pull from our students. And so that in the chat there, I drop an example. I've met with a lot of universities to see what they're doing with their process. And this is actually Boise State has something they use that I stole this from. But giving them a little more structure for this, or just ideas, I guess, to inspire them to think about what they're doing. And so like in here, like taking care of the family responsibilities, volunteering, the community service, different awards, things that interests or hobbies that maybe shows their leadership. They didn't think about that at first, but providing this kind of a list to them to give us that example was one of the things we've been toying around with to, again, so elicit that information from the students. And think outside the title. And it is the action, not just the title, which I think is so important.
Anything else on the students' written essay questions or the interview questions? Okay, we'll make a very short shift to the rubrics that you all used to evaluate the essays and evaluate the interviews. What worked, what didn't work. Were they helpful in identifying, eliciting leadership evidence from students and helping you all evaluate that leadership evidence?
It was for me because I wasn't exactly sure of what was expected.
So as kind of a refresher, how it was ranked, it provided different options of showing that evidence. Were those examples clear enough, do you think, for all of you that you could score appropriately based on that information, or is a deeper explanation of the rankings needed?
I think the rankings were fine. Yeah, I think the rankings were fine.
Jamaica, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but do you remember, was there any kind of specific from the surveys, some feedback in that area that were maybe good suggestions or a great call out?
There's a number of people that talked about being able to do partial points, so 3.5 points instead of 4 points to help when you do the pulling the scores, to break it down a little bit more. I don't know how many of the groups actually did use the reports that I sent out to the chairs this year where you could pull the reporting for the scores. That's something I've been doing on the back end for the other committees that I run. But that could help if you had partial points that you could award out. So I did see the positive in that, if that's something we look at. I was looking through the notes here real quick to see if there's anything specific about. I think that was the biggest thing about the scoring was that part of it, just more flexibility in the actual number given, the points given. Any other comments? Are we doing to keep to time here? So we have 4 minutes left. If there's no more comments on the report, and if you have more to share later, you can get a hold of me or Roxanne or Karen or send an email, or stick around. But anything else on the rubrics?
I just had a couple of things. One, I think that like with rubrics, if you have a scoring system, I think our scoring system 1 through 5. If you don't do it that way, if you do an even number like 1 through 4 or 1 through 6, I don't know what it is, then you don't need partial points because you're forcing people to score either a 2, or a 3, which is Whereas in a point system that's 1 through 5, a 3 is in the middle, and people always says like, oh, I'm just going to give them an average 3. Whereas if you do 1 through 4, there's no average. 2 is either lower and 3 is either higher. So so if you do it that way, you're usually don't need partial points.
That's a great point.
Okay, last but certainly not least, any feedback, just general feedback around volunteer experience, their overall experience as a volunteer, what would improve your experience, what's maybe an obstacle or what hinders it that we can help improve or support?
I just wanted to say, because I haven't said anything yet, overall, the experience was awesome. It was my first experience, so I didn't really have anything to compare it to. Another reason why I probably didn't have much feedback, but I just wanted to say the culmination of support between the training handbook rubric, there was no way to not be able to find what you needed. So even in the moments where I didn't know something, I had the handbook or the rubric kind of answered, questions that I might have had as far as being able to assess a response of an applicant. So I just want to commend the board that put this all together, because it really was, I felt like, a smooth experience on top of those that led the individual scholarship groups. I was in the Palouse region, and it was great. Timing was great. It just really flowed. So again, I don't have anything to compare it to, but I just wanted to also, highlight the positive. I think that it's always easy for us to be like, what's wrong? What's not working? It worked really well from my perspective. The only thing I didn't know was that there was that mentor person that was part of the process too. Does anybody remember that? Like, we had someone, I forgot his name.
A mentor buddy. Yeah, a buddy to
Yeah.
kind of talk to.
Yes, that was the only part that probably was like, okay, that's okay. Maybe it worked for someone or something. That was the only part that I felt like was kind of like the piece that I wasn't clear about how to use, but I didn't need, I guess, either. So maybe someone else used it and found it helpful in completing the process. But otherwise, the experience as a volunteer was great.
Thank you. That's helpful. Hi, Tom. You're muted, honey.
Hi, yeah, sorry, I missed most of this session. I apologize for that. I was traveling today and finally got to a computer here, but I think I appreciate the opportunity to have this chat session on it, and I'm sure that maybe I might be repeating some of the things that others said, but I can't disagree with what the last person said. I think the process was much smoother overall from the standpoint of the information and the use of the reviewer. Of course, I've been through the reviewer a little bit, so it wasn't my difficulty. I did know that I had several of my scholarship members had difficulty accessing the site for some reason, and there seemed to be the one thing that I noticed that in that regard was we had a lot of what appeared to be overlapping notes with regard to instructions, and not always a differentiation between what I was getting as the coordinator or the chairman versus what the other members were getting. And I think some clarity on that would have been helpful. I think that, and to the extent that there's references made to prior information, that should be repeated again in the new email that comes out so that it's not disjointed. I found myself a number of times having to go back and dig through the emails to find out what was being referred to when the comment came that, well, by the way, we're changing this prior thing, and you're really not knowing the full context of it. So I think that the communications that initiate the discussion, identify the training sessions, and then go into the various steps of what needs to be done should be very carefully reviewed to follow a consistent pattern and not confuse the issue, because I think I and some other people did have, a couple of my committee members said, well, where would they say that, So it was a little bit disjunctured and disjointed in that regard.
But can
I think
ask a question? Sorry, Tom, real quick on that. There were some emails that I sent to all committee members, period.
Right.
And then
Right.
like the due date ones, I was sending to the committee chairs. do we want, what was the preference? Does everything go to everybody, or do I communicate just to the chairs and they talk to the committee people, or what would be the best
I
way?
think it should go to everybody, and it should be said that this is an item of significance. The chairman will have such and such access, but you others may not.
Okay.
And just be very, very clear about that, because that frankly, that was the thing that was confusing me.
Okay, thank you.
I found the mentoring a little bit intrusive and not really helpful. It was odd duck in the sense of, here you are moving down through this process, and suddenly there's a third party that jumps in and says, "Well, I'm here to help your committee." Well, how and where and how? It didn't seem that there was. I think with the instructions and clarity, that the idea of throwing a mentor into it really just adds a level of complexity that is not a really a useful condition to have in there. But maybe that's my sense here, because I don't have that many applicants, and so we get fewer applicants than do the other states, such as Washington, because of the higher component of available scholarships. And my third thought is that well, I guess that's maybe the fourth thought, but the final thought is that the clarity I would prefer to see on whether there's going to be 3 or 5 out-of-state chapter selections, let us know that kind of upfront. And I don't know exactly how the process is made, that you make that distinction sometime at some point in time. Maybe it's due to the funding level, or it's due to the number of applicants. I don't know. And it wasn't clear to me that there was a reason why that was the case. And I think that, and that's not, I shouldn't probably be ungrateful, if you will, because I've been successful in having a scholarship applicant pretty consistently, but then I got good leaders that come out of our area and move forward. So if we could get a little clarity on that, it'd be helpful too in the process. Those are the major things I have to contribute, and if I'm repeating things that other people have said, I apologize for that. So.
Well, thank you. That's good. Any final comments about anything at all? And again, if you need to log off, understood, but we are going to stick around if anybody has anything else to share. Your input is really helpful. I've been taking notes this whole time, and we're going to debrief after this too, to make sure that we're not missing anything and continue making those improvements. And hopefully you're seeing that on your end too. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, if you have any final thoughts, feel free to stick around. If not, have a fantastic evening and go Cougs.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it. And again, I apologize for not being able to participate throughout.
No, I'm glad.
Thank you all. Go Cougs.
Thank you all.
Hey, go Cougs.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Go Cougs, as always.
See everybody.